Most institutions begin a visioning or strategic planning process with reflection on the mission of the institution. This webinar outlines a simple structured dialogue tool to use to review the mission. It serves to queue up strategic revisions to the mission, as well as driving visioning, strategy development, strategic planning, and strategic positioning. The method is called the SRS Method of assessing mission. In the SRS method for assessing the mission of a college or university, the SRS stands for sphere, role, and strategy. The method follows a simple diagram, and we will develop the diagram over the course of this webinar. By structuring a dialogue following the elements of this diagram, the method helps frame strategic questions, develop future-focused answers, and engage a deeper understanding of the relationships that must be considered in mission review, visioning, strategy development, strategic planning, and strategic positioning. Most institutions begin a strategic planning process with reflection on the mission of the institution, and professional planners agree that it is important in this process to revisit the function of the mission as a strategic element in planning. The mission defines the organization's fiduciary or chosen fundamental purpose for being. Fiduciary means the public in general and potential enrollees specifically trust the institution to perform the function. Defining in discrete terms the function or responsibility the public trusts the organization to perform provides the primary touch point for assessment and evaluation by queuing up the question, are we fulfilling our fiduciary function? It provides the foundation for visioning, strategy development, strategic planning, and strategic positioning. Mission is represented as a bidirectional line at the base of the diagram. Once the fundamental function, responsibility, and purpose is established, the organization must define its sphere of influence or service area within the larger global learning sphere. Global learning sphere is a term that refers to all of the educational programs, credentials, and material available worldwide through all means, methods, and providers, including bricks and mortar institutions, internet-based learning opportunities, and commercial as well as nonprofit offerings. Sphere of influence means the segments of the global learning sphere a specific learning provider participates in or provides services for. It replaces the term service area. The emerging diagram connects one end of the bidirectional line representing the mission to the sphere of influence, thereby establishing a formal link and relationship between mission and sphere. The other end of the bidirectional line connects to the roles an institution plays in the learning sphere as directed by its mission. Role is defined here to encompass such elements as the scope and intent of the curriculum, the array of credentials, the affinity for or service to the learner, the array and design of programs of study, teaching methods and the learning modalities deployed, assessment models utilized, and areas of research, either basic or applied, the institution may engage in. Sphere, mission, and role define the intent of the institution's academic enterprise. Academic enterprise is defined here to include such elements as the curriculum, learner and learning support services, assessment, evaluation, and research. Next, we use this foundation as a lens to look forward into the future. With a basic understanding of sphere, mission, and role, organizational leaders must look to the future, a process known as visioning, in order to define its future role and position in the global learning sphere. Vision is depicted here as a bidirectional line emanating from role and advancing that role into the future to some aspirational point. The vision of the organization defines its intent to act, to implement actions to make its future happen. The means to achieve the vision is through the design, development, and implementation of institutional strategy. Strategy anchors the other end of the vision line and is defined here to include the actions the institution will take to achieve its future. Strategy is the natural outcome of any strategic planning activity, and by definition changes the institution's position with respect to other academic enterprises in the global learning sphere. Strategy sets direction, defines milestones, frames specifications for successful execution, is guided by key performance indicators, and monitored for signals that corrective measures are required. Implementation of strategy is the means by which sustainable models and systems are conceptualized, prototyped, and eventually deployed as standard practice. When the planned strategies are implemented, they direct the institution toward achievement of a strategic position in the global learning sphere. Strategic position is depicted here as a bidirectional line emanating from strategy and driving the institution's place in the global learning sphere. This closes the loop and brings the mission, role, vision, and strategy to influence the competitive position of the institution. Strategic position is what determines outcomes such as reputation, enrollment, funding, and resource development success. Strategic position is the result of more than simple rank in a linear scale, but rather a more meta-analytical view of all ranks along all dimensions and the strategies, models, systems, and performance that achieve them. Performance, not just marketing, is the primary means to achieve and sustain strategic position. These 6 elements frame an institution's trajectory, a term used to refer to the pathway the institution will take into the future. The mission clarifies the fundamental fiduciary function of the institution within its sphere of influence as it fulfills its roles and responsibilities. The vision projects that role into the future, requiring strategy to achieve it. As the strategy is implemented, the institution achieves a strategic position within the global learning sphere. The big question becomes, so what happens to the learner in all of this, and how is the learner contextualized in the process? The 6 elements framed by the SRS Pyramid serve as a lens to examine 7 structured questions that define a learner's experience that ultimately drives the strategic plan of the institution. Where the 6 elements of the SRS Pyramid are defined by an institutional view, the 7 structured questions are defined through a learner's view. While the SRS Pyramid helps determine the intent and trajectory, answers to the next 7 questions help develop the means to achieve them. The first question describes and helps define the learner populations that inhabit the sphere of influence the institution wishes or is required to serve. Question 1, what are the demographics, characteristics, interests, and capabilities of the learners an institution seeks to serve? A great deal of strategy relies upon deeply understanding the characteristics of the learners an academic enterprise is designed to serve. Comparing your plan or current operations to a comprehensive view of the populations to be served reveals a great deal about alignment of the institution with the learners who can benefit. The second question is simply, what objectives do learners seek to achieve? Or a slightly different version, what objectives must be delivered to serve the sphere of influence the institution has identified? A misalignment between the objectives learners within the sphere seek and the objectives offered by the academic enterprise will underserve the population within the sphere of influence. Underserving is the perfect strategy for becoming marginalized by more focused providers. But underserving is not a strategy most would knowingly select to implement. The third question is the next logical step for any learner seeking a learning opportunity. Question 3, what learning opportunities are available from the global learning environment? There are a great many variables that a learner must deal with in determining the best options or programs of study available to meet their needs. The variables include such concepts and realities as affordability, admissibility, learning modalities, schedules, and available learner services. Institutional offerings are driven by deeper concepts such as curricular philosophy, curriculum architecture, institutional effectiveness strategies, and business models. While these deeper concepts are largely transparent to the learner, they must be carefully developed by the institution. Building the future requires that an institution analyze, understand, and develop competitive offerings that align these elements to achieve the strategies that drive and thrive in the global learning marketplace and the evolving, complex societies it serves. The fourth question would be the next logical step if the learner knew to ask it and if the institution provided the answer. Question 4, what teaching and learning methods are available to help individual learners seeking specific objectives within a competitive learning marketplace achieve their intended learning outcomes. A mismatch here means the curriculum and the learner do not match, and the opportunity for successful engagement to completion is diminished. There is a great deal of attention paid to a World Wide Web full of stuff, but stuff, meaning information of course, is not curriculum. It is not assessed teaching and learning experiences indicating performance potential. It is not measured against standard outcomes, nor is it validated by experts. The emerging digital learning environment, however, can embed these things, can deliver well-designed, validated curriculum, can be interactive and even diagnostic and confirmatory in supporting learning and the learner. Teaching and learning methods are deeply important to institutional strategy, must be discussed by the academic community, and subject to intentional design in the development of curriculum. The answer to the fifth question, what is the overall curriculum architecture of the institution being evaluated, provides a structural way for an institution to align its offerings with the populations it chooses to serve. The term curriculum architecture refers to the overall systemic design of an academic institution's educational offerings. Curriculum architecture, therefore, is the systemic design model guiding the conceptualization, design, development, and delivery of all learning pathways and credentials offered by an educational organization. The curriculum's architecture is conveyed through discrete specifications that guide the design and implementation of the entire academic enterprise and reach across all academic aspects. Because a curriculum's architecture emanates from its mission, the architecture must align the curricular portfolio with the needs of the various learners and learning communities an institution serves. The sixth question focuses upon programs by asking, what is the configuration of each specific programmatic curriculum? Commonly called a program of study, the configuration of a POS details discrete specifications designed to align a POS with the learner being served. This means aligning the POS and its methods, delivery, and outcomes with the learning population's skills, abilities, and circumstances. It also means aligning the POS with the specific infrastructure and intellectual capital of the institution. There is an inexorable link between the answers to the fifth and sixth questions, being the curriculum's overall architecture and the configuration of a specific program of study. And where the learner is largely unaware that an architecture even exists, they are highly aware of the program of study specifications and how they meet their particular needs. The seventh and last question is, what learner services are necessary to enable a learner to successfully complete the selected curriculum or program of study? The answer to this question must recognize that there are a number of services that help a student achieve their learning goals and objectives. Often, it is access to specific services or learning support functions that are the deciding factor in successfully completing a program of study. Virtually every institution is seeking to discern the service profile that really matters to learners and therefore worth the investment by the institution. Part of the discernment is determining how best to provide specific services from a list of options, including but not limited to such things as one-stop, virtual self-service, mobile application, point of need, or scripted FAQs, to name a few. As institutions seek to trim budgets, the service offerings are receiving much deeper attention, and their review should be highly strategic, meaning assessed based upon value to the learner. The 7 questions together develop a learner's lens through which to examine the 6 interactive concepts that frame the SRS Pyramid. I usually begin in the lower right of the diagram with sphere and work clockwise around the outside of the pyramid, although technically you can begin anywhere and work either clockwise or counterclockwise. After one round, the importance of sphere as the begin point emerges. The sphere of an academic entity being defined here as the institution, a school within it, or a college within it, or even a department or program, is defined by its geographic reach, its competitive or collaborative programs, subjects, disciplines, and/or communities of practice influenced by and whose influence is exerted on the curriculum. Each strategic entity is defined by its mission within a sphere that defines its role within that sphere. Environmental scanning and analysis, often referred to as a SWOT analysis, standing for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, inform and evaluates changes within the sphere and how they impact the mission and role of the organization. Environmental scanning without an analysis is a waste of time. Once the sphere mission role conditions and interactions are understood, strategists, planners, and constituents invest in the creative process of determining a vision for the future of the organization, in which strengths are sustained or enhanced, weaknesses are addressed, opportunities are capitalized on, and threats are mitigated. Strategies are then developed to enable the entity, be it the institution, school, college, or even department or program, to realize its vision. When implemented, the strategies modify and sustain the entity's strategic position in its sphere of influence. At each point in the discussion of these concepts, it's helpful to turn the 7 learner-centered questions and ask, what does this mean in terms of the learner? I'm going to walk through 3 illustrative examples as a way of showing the use of the SRS Pyramid to build strategic position and pull all of this together. These represent quick reflections across a number of client experiences designed to give a feel for implementing the SRS structured dialogue method within an institution. The examples are for a liberal arts college, a community college, and a college of art and design as an example for institutions with scholar practitioner type philosophies. For those who have attempted this kind of dialogue, permit me to offer some rather tame and civilized summaries gleaned from what were rather protracted and sometimes even contentious client examples to illustrate the net effect of structured dialogue using the SRS framework to build strategic position. In the first example, let's consider a liberal arts college and how the SRS method frames a structured dialogue. Facing the effects of global economic crisis, persistent enrollment challenges, and general assertions that the liberal arts are not job-focused enough, and therefore of lesser value, the institution decides to engage in a new strategic planning exercise. In that exercise, they quickly determine in a discussion of sphere, mission, and role that they have too narrow a geographic reach and must expand their sphere. They then select the 10 contiguous states plus 3 metropolitan regions where they have a presence, and develop an international strategy based upon specific programs of study. They continue to place high value on the liberal arts experience, but recognize that in order to strengthen institutional performance and recruitment, they must substantiate the value of the liberal arts approach as having fundamental high value to learners and the society in which they live. As the vision dialogue engages, the following emerged. In a world forever linked with instantaneous communications, the ability to communicate effectively is essential. In a world where decisions routinely weigh on evidence that must be argued and debated, the ability to understand such things as computational concepts, philosophy, logic, and reason is essential. In a world that is truly global in scope and function, the understanding of such things as global cultures, historic contexts, comparative economies, religion, and geography is essential. In a world driven by new technology, understanding such things as the effective use and application of technology, the derivation of technological advances, the economies and value of basic research, and the ethical challenges new technologies bring to complex global societies is essential. The deep discussions led to the decision to engage in a rapid prototype of a first-year experience that focuses upon these value propositions and begin rethinking their portfolio of programs and learning experiences. We turn now to our second example of a community college. A community college revealed in a discussion regarding sphere, mission, and role that its mission involved having fiduciary responsibility for human capital development for its geographic service area. The mission, defined that way, requires that the institution assess the human capital needs of its service area, a task that it had yet to undertake with the community. The academic participants began to reflect, what does this mean for the academic enterprise, and how does it, or should it, affect the curriculum? They need to assess the current curriculum architecture for alignment with workforce or continuous learning needs of the constituents in the region emerged as a major discovery. A cursory evaluation of the alignment between the human capital needs of the region and the curriculum of the community college found significant gaps and misalignments. For example, 1. There were no degrees that could be completed by attending only evenings or weekends. 2. Another gap recognized that all remedial work was bundled in a course structure, making enrollment often conditional upon the completion of a lengthy series of courses, prolonging entrance into the program of study and seriously deterring student engagement. 3. There were virtually no offerings that did not require physical presence on campus. There were, of course, more gaps and discoveries, and with them in mind, a strategy to develop a specific curriculum architecture that would align with the workforce needs of the region was proposed, and specifications for such an architecture were developed. With a supportive curriculum architecture in place, the community college would be in much stronger position to claim resources. Its curriculum would compete better in the learning marketplace, and the community college's strategic position would be significantly enhanced. In this example, the design, development, and implementation of a curriculum architecture that supports the mission of meeting the human capital development needs of its geographic service area emerged as a primary strategy. In the third example, a College of Art and Design, while reviewing its mission using the SRS dialog framework, developed a vision to become globally preeminent, especially in the digital arts. They quickly arrived at their first strategic question: does the curriculum measure up to the vision? They engaged in a deep reflective assessment of the curriculum that revealed weaknesses. They then developed strategies to re-engineer the curriculum. The process involved both the curriculum's architecture, including an embedded assessment approach, and the college's programs of study in order to fulfill the promise of their stated vision to focus upon graduates being practice-ready upon graduation. New programs were built, and the campus master plan was directed to align facilities with the academic vision. A second question emerged right behind the first, and that is, how does a College of Art and Design project a preeminent image globally? And so a second strategy emerged to develop campaigns to project the college and its curriculum in the voice of the learners, and to focus upon the value of art and design in complex global societies. Specifically, the strategy was designed to project its image to global art and design constituents, such as K-12 art teachers, to enhance its competitive position in attracting talented students, to project its image to employers to enhance its competitive position in placing talented students after graduation, and to project its image to art and design faculty around the globe to enhance its competitive position in attracting the best faculty. And of course, it needed to project its image to art and design leaders around the world to enhance its competitive reputation and position both the pool of talented students and the curriculum that develops them. These three brief sketches describe using the SRS method, but just touch upon the deep reflections and focused discussions that typically emanate from this approach. By focusing upon the interplay between sphere, role, and strategy, and the questions the reflections raise, planners and constituents can begin to strengthen their mission, forge a new vision, new strategies, and build a strong position in the learning marketplace. The SRS method is a very valuable tool when using the curriculum-centered strategic planning model.